Hi everyone, this is Barbara Beckman here. Thanks for watching today. I'm quickly sketching out an iris. I have a picture of an iris that I took in the backyard and I wanted to turn it into a paper piecing creation work of art for a long time now. So I'm working on that today, and as I'm working on it, I'm keeping in mind patterns because I sell patterns from my Etsy store for paper piecing. So if you notice, the drawing is kind of like a stained glass look. I'm just blocking in shapes. And I do that for a reason, because it's just easier to piece these together at this point and to get your foundation going for your drawing. So I do this very loosely, making changes as I go on, because I'm constantly having to think that it's going to be a pattern. So I have to make these shapes easy to cut out for people and for myself. So I create this pattern many times for myself, and here's the original drawing that looks very much like blocked in stained glass, and that's exactly what I was going for. So what I do is I print out my own pattern onto thick, heavy cardstock, and here's a mirror image, so I'm able to reverse them or change them up a little, make them smaller, make them bigger. And this way it doesn't look like the same iris. I could actually use this in the same composition, just turning it around or switching up the size. So I make a bunch of them and I cut them all out and I put them in envelopes so that when I go to use them, they're all ready and set to go. So I do use heavy, thick cardstock. I'll put a link to that below for you if you want to know what I use. And as long as it's nice and thick, almost like a folder, you know, those manila folders. If it's something thick like that, then that's really what I go for, because I want to be able to use this pattern several times. It's tedious to cut these out, and I only want to do it once. Well, actually, you do it twice because you're going to be cutting out the paper from this pattern as well. So I want to cut it out as little as possible. So I just chose this one little one that I was working on, that I was cutting out anyway to show you. So what I do is I keep all the pieces together, and I get an envelope. I'll write on the envelope the size it is. Say, for instance, this is like a 5x7. I'll just write that it's the iris template and how many pieces were in it. So this way, when I go to make them, I can just pull them out and I know right away how big they are, how small they are. So this one was quite small. It's a lot of little pieces there. I think it was about 31 pieces. But they're all numbered for you, and I also suggest that you would print this out just to use as a reference for placing too down on your paper, because your paper would not have the original drawing like mine does on it. So if you notice, I'm working on a really large one and it's almost too big for the paper. So even though it's almost too big for the paper, what I do is I enlarged it so that they would all be the same, but I'm just printing out like at least 4 copies. And the first copy is going to be concentrating on the top right section of the flower, and then the bottom section of the flower, and then the top left, and then the bottom left. So this way I'll have about 4 pieces of paper that are printed out, and they're all pretty big, so they're going to all not fit onto the paper, but I'll have multiple pieces to cut from. As long as I have every single piece, then I'm good to go. So I'm going through my Gelli prints right now, and I separate them. These are like the funky colors, but I do have folders with like browns and blues and pinks and reds. So I'll go through that, and I'm looking for purples because the iris has got beautiful dark purples and blues in it. So I'm going to pull that out, some green for the stem, and I'm looking for some of that yellow for the middle there. But I just do this very quickly and very randomly, no giving it too much time or thought. It's just very, very quickly. I don't overthink anything. Once you start to overthink things, sometimes it doesn't become fun anymore. So now I'll start to cut out my pieces. So I pull some of the purples, they're really pretty purples, and I'll try to work from a couple of the same pages. Now I don't want to put 2 of the same colors together because you'll lose that in the flower. I want to have contrast. So I'm always thinking contrast and using different papers that are all around the same kind of hue. So I'm looking for purples. Here's some with some pink in it, and that's fine. I'll make it work for me. I'm just looking for different variations of whatever deli print I have here. So I do print on deli paper. I'll put a link to that below. It's nice and thin, and it allows me to do a lot of layers on top of layers here. So if you were just piecing this together, you can certainly just cut out your pieces for your flower and you could call it done. It'd be done. It'd be really pretty. And you could also piece together the background if you want. And I do that by using deli paper and just tracing out the background onto the deli paper, and then cutting it out. or you can actually paint the background, whatever you want to do. So I like to layer a lot, so once I get everything pieced out, that's really, when I first started, that's where I used to call it done. But now that I'm more experienced and I've been doing this for years, I continue to go on and layer. And I also have a painting background, so I try to incorporate some of that painting background and some of the skill sets I have learning that into my paper piecings as well. So another little thing I do is I use a ballpoint pen. It just writes really wonderfully on the deli paper, and I can actually see what I'm doing. Otherwise, you're going to struggle with, like, if you use a very light pencil or something that you know, it's too light to see. Ballpoint pens are fine, and when I cut it out, I do it right on the line. You really can't see the line, so don't be concerned with that. I know some people were questioning if I just did the ballpoint pen while I show my videos just so you could see what I'm doing, but no, I totally use it throughout. So what I also do is, another little trick is, I take a any kind of marker, like an alcohol marker or a Sharpie, and I go around some of the pieces if they are cut a little too short. So if I'm not exactly perfect on the line, as I layer the pieces down and I glue them into place, you're not going to see any white of that paper. So you're going to have a nice edge for whatever color that I'm working with. I don't do it throughout the entire piece, but there are pieces here that I know I cut on the line a little too exact, and it doesn't really matter because as I fill in with the background, they'll go away anyway. But sometimes I do that. So I'm only just showing you this for demonstration purposes, that if you're not sure your pieces are exactly the same exact size, you cut them a little smaller than you should have, that's a good trick to help you when you're piecing them. So just go around the pieces on the inside or outside or wherever you think you know, you might have some white of the paper showing, and block it in there. So when you take that piece and put it right over it, there you go. You won't have any problems making it fit exactly perfectly. So I just take my time doing these, probably because I just love to do it. I love the whole process. I put music on, or I'll put on a TV and listen to it in the background. I never get to watch anything with my eyes, but I get to hear a lot of different things. So music's always a good thing. I find it inspirational. But I just put it on and I relax and enjoy it. So you probably wouldn't be watching this if you didn't have an interest in doing something different like this and piecing papers together. So let me tell you a little bit about my pattern and what I'm doing. So I've been making patterns for many, many years now, and it's only probably about a year ago, a little maybe 2 years ago, that I started actually offering them for sale. And I did that because I was getting an overwhelming amount of emails from people asking me where I purchased them or if I sell them, and I never really even thought about it. I just did them for my own use. But then I thought about it and I started to produce them, and I just wanted to see how they did, you know, test out the waters a little bit if there was a need for them, because they do take so long for me to make. I mean, to make them for myself is one thing, because I don't have to be so detailed with instructions or labeling numbers. I just happen to know where things go, probably because I created it. But because I'm selling them now, they do take a long time, and I have to actually put, you know, piece 1 goes here, piece 2 goes here. I don't list what colors, because obviously it's going to be very individual. They're all going to be different. So I don't waste my time actually telling people what to use or what choices to pick out. And this way they're able to make my patterns their own. But my patterns are available over my Etsy store. I only put the ones that I think are, you know, easy enough to use and that people would have an interest in. I have several patterns that I've made in the past throughout the years. And sadly, I really can't go back and use them again because I didn't actually do them in the exact setup as I'm doing them now. So I probably could recreate them at some point, but it would just be a lot of work. So as I make them now, and I think that they would be something that people would be interested in, I do have the patterns available over at my Etsy store. So I'll link that below for you if you're interested in taking a peek at it. I try to sell them relatively inexpensive because it's just really the pattern that you're purchasing. Everything else you're using is your own supplies. So yeah, they're not crazy expensive to buy. So if you do purchase the pattern, you would just print it out on the heavy cardstock like I showed you and go ahead and piece it together. So what happens is you can piece this whole thing out. You would put the flower in and the greenery, and you could work on the background. You can paint it in, or you can use deli paper or scrapbook paper or whatever else you want to use for the background. I'm going to show you how I piece the background together when I get to it. So for me, what I do is I work on these and I really do a lot of layering, and I go above and beyond where most people would probably stop. So if you just piece together using my pattern and just piece together the 30 pieces, you would have a really beautiful composition or work to show people or to sell or whatever you're going to be doing with it. I like to use my painting skills just because I've been painting for so long, and I like to try to create blurry backgrounds and different pockets of negative space. I like to have some clusters of some darks and some lights, and I like to change the composition. This way, if I do use this pattern again, which I always do, I can change it and it's never going to be the same. I'll never have two that are exactly the same. So what do I do with these? I definitely sell them. I work really hard at piecing them together. The originals are always for sale, and I make beautiful canvases from them. So the intention is to create a piece of work for my business that I enjoy doing, sitting here creating and just relaxing. I like teaching, so I'm getting the best of both worlds all crammed into like one. So here you go. I'm going to work on the background now. And what I'm doing is I'm just picking out scrapbook paper that I happen to have around here, just because realistically in my head I want the background covered. So I just took deli paper and I'm going ahead and tracing out around that leaf, and all I do is lay it down on the paper here, and I cut the same shape out. Now it doesn't have to be perfect. It really doesn't, because I'm going to be adding pieces of paper on top of this green anyway. I just like to have it filled out just for my eye's sake. It's just the way I work. You certainly don't have to do it this way. If you're comfortable and you want to do piecing of paper together like I will be doing on a white background, it can certainly work for you. Everybody has their own different ways of looking at things, but this makes me kind of think outside the box a little bit more, and I have a better overall idea in my head of where I'm going to be going with it. So I like to piece together the background, and I know that on the left side of this composition I want it to be pretty dark, and I want to have pockets of lights and darks throughout. So I just go ahead and I take this green scrapbook paper and I will glue it down. So what glue am I using? I'm using Liquitex Professional Matte Medium, and it is my favorite glue of choice, but you can certainly use Mod Podge, or you can even use Elmer's glue, watered down a little bit with some water, or Aleene's craft glue. Any really white school glue will do, but I happen to like this professional quality glue the best. I've been using it for many, many years, and it is definitely my go-to. So I glue these all down into place here, and I don't really care that they're not, you know, so perfect. They're as best as I can get for now, but I'm going to be adding paper over it, so I really don't care. So I found this beautiful paper that was a gorgeous color brown that I was looking for, and it had some gold kind of leafing in it. And it doesn't matter that it's not solid. That's the beauty of paper piecing. I want to take different patterns and see what I can do with them. Now, if by any chance I come across something that's absolutely awful and I've glued it down already and I realize it was the wrong choice, don't worry about it. You can just simply start to glue on top of it. Do layers. Don't peel these up because you will destroy your papers underneath, or you'll just make a hot mess of things. So do not peel them up once you've committed and put them down here with this glue. So do a lot of layerings. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at a reference photo that I took from my backyard, and I'm just going along trying to not so much copy the picture, but just trying to place in some lights and some darks. So that's what I'm doing here. And I'm just ripping the paper with my hands and going along, and I'll go on top of the other pieces of paper, or I'll go on the side of it. It's just trying to block in some shapes at this point. So I'm taking my time. I'm just enjoying it. I love paper piecing, so it's not stressful for me. I guess, you know, when I first started, it was a little stressful only because I wanted it to be done and see what it came out to. Once I kind of got that out of my head and stopped rushing to get it finished because I was so excited to see what I created, I really started to enjoy the process a little bit more. So if you're rushing like I was doing at one point to try to get this done just because you want to see the magic moment, walk away from it and come back. Take a step back and try to think about how you feel when you are creating it, and take your time. So This took me many, many hours. I want to say 60 hours, 70 hours to create from beginning to end. And that's why I'm breaking it down into 2 different videos. So it's something that I worked on over a period of time. It didn't come together in one afternoon. So if you're purchasing this pattern and you're using my pattern, or you're creating your own pattern, you're going to get to a point where you're going to have pieced everything together. And that's when you're going to have to make the decision if you want to continue or not. So you can certainly leave it as it is if you just piece together your paper piecings as cut out, or you can go ahead and try to come up with a different background like I am. So I'm just really going around here trying to cover every part of this green paper that I actually put down earlier, and it took a long time. As I said before, it took a long time, like 60 hours. But I do this because I like the layering, and if you notice, I'm not going near the flower at this point. I'm just working on the background. So once I'm said and done and I have the background pretty much pieced out together with a lot of different contrasting papers, I will start to go back and go over the iris again. And if by any chance you lose a petal and something comes out, you know, you start to realize that you've lost your shape, you have the original pattern. So you can go pull that piece of paper again and use it, your template, and use it and cut a new piece of paper out. And that's what I ended up doing with the flower here in the foreground. I was trying to do a lot of lights and darks at one point, and I did not like the way it started to look. I lost that petal. So you'll see that, and probably coming up in part 2, just because I had to break it down. There are too many hours of this video. I really wanted to share it, so I didn't want to make it an hour long, but I didn't want you know, it to be so overwhelming. And I didn't want to not include something, because that's not right. You just see this finished product that I make, and I'm missing a whole big chunk in the middle. So I broke this down into 2 videos, and they're probably going to be about a half an hour each. So you can take your time, come back and watch them, or speed it up. There's that little button somewhere down there. It looks like a wheel. Click on that if you just want to bypass everything that I'm saying and, you know, speed through and just watch my hands. Because a lot of times I learn that way. I learn just by visually watching somebody and not necessarily hearing them. So you do what fits you best and what suits your needs. And, you know, I hope you, when you do this, if you try it, you enjoy it. Now, you can certainly draw out your own flower. That's not a problem, but it's the same kind of way you'd be piecing it together. Is take your reference photo that you took or from your head. This is where you use your artistic license and make it your own and just have fun and create whatever comes out of you. And don't forget, you can change it. You don't like certain sections of it. Art is extremely forgiving. You can go ahead and change it up at any time. So just by going over it and changing the colors, you can change your entire composition. So for me, it is definitely about layering. So I'm not going to leave the original pieces that I placed down here for the flowers as they were. I'm going to start layering on top of them also. So I'm going to start darkening and lightening some of the areas, but I'll still have some of those papers that I originally put down to begin with that I actually cut out from the pattern. So you can definitely change things and, you know, look at the composition, take a step back, walk away, come back later. It's really a process, and it could take a couple hours to many hours like this took me. So it all depends on how much you want to work on something and how you want it to look in the end. So I really didn't want to just throw up a finished painting or picture or whatever you want to call these paper piecing paintings and not have you know how I created it. So sometimes I also take some inks to it, and I'll add a little bit more color sometimes, because I did start out using acrylic paint to make these paper, deli paper prints in the first place. So if I'm really struggling, I just don't have the paper that I really need, you can definitely go in and add a little bit of paint. It's not cheating. It's you're still piecing together papers. So there's a lot of different things you could do to overall get the look that you have in your head that you want this to come out to. So I ended up highlighting some of those flowers at some point with a little bit of white, and I hated it. So I did lose that flower that I'm working on right now. And in part 2, I went ahead and I recut some of those areas. Because I had the pattern, it's always available to me. I just recut it and defined it again, and I was able to bring it back right away. So like I said, art is very forgiving, and you can change it up at any time. So I like to work, as you can see, on a foam plate. I think that works best. I get these from the dollar store, and I can just trash them and throw them out. They're so inexpensive. Paintbrushes. I don't use good quality paintbrushes at all. I use an artist brush that I've been painting on for a long time that's maybe seen better days. So I still need something that's going to be easy to work with and a nice, you know, nice bristles on it, not something that's stuck and hard as a rock. It's probably going to get that way anyway as I work on it. Actually, it stays pretty soft because until this dries, the glue is pretty flexible, and I don't have any problems with it, the brush bending or being like, you know, hard as a brick. I do wash them and it comes right out. So I've been using the same brush for my paper piecings for a long time now. So you can take care of them, and you can use them for a long time. So I apologize for my birds in there. They just realize I'm talking and they're trying to probably tell me they're hungry because it is morning here in New York. And I made the rounds today. I have a lot of animals, so I always make the rounds and feed everybody. But I think they're a little jealous. I have a son conure and he gets a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables. So these two little guys, I think they just need some water, or they're just really happy. Who knows? But I apologize. They are far away. They're in a totally different room. But yeah, I hear them chirping away in there. And like I said, sometimes when I talk, they think I'm talking to them. So just imagine that we're sitting outside in a beautiful backyard or a park and we're working on these. So yeah, I apologize for that. So here I am just starting to layer on my flowers, which is what I was trying to say. You can stop way before this point. When I first started, I stopped way before this. And then as I got to be experienced and more of a risk taker and thought, well, okay, I've only spent 50 hours on this. I could totally ruin it and be throwing it in the garbage. Or I can make it something wonderful. So it's up to you how risky you want to get, you know. So the whole thing is about enjoying it and playing. And you can, you know, make it again. So you screw up the first time and you hated it. Like I said, just layer on top of it. You can get it back. You don't have to trash your whole thing. Or you can do another one. Or you can change up the color. I mean, how cool would it be to have like a pink and an orange iris shaped flower? So you don't have to do these purples. You really have to think outside the box. So here I am starting to put some of this like white paper there for some highlights, and it almost started to look like cotton, and it was kind of neat in the beginning, and I kept going. I didn't really know what I was going to be getting. I didn't really like it overall in the end, but that's what I'm saying about taking a risk. If I didn't know, if I didn't do it, I would never know. So here it kind of looks a little weird up top, but I'm able to get things back in the second video. So I hope you stay tuned and you watch that. So that is almost completed. I've been piecing that video together. Just like I'm piecing these pieces of paper together, the video clips take so long, and it's, you know, I must enjoy it on some level or I totally wouldn't be doing it. But honestly, I'd much rather be painting or creating. So this is not the funnest part of the process for me. But I really want to show you what I do because people ask all the time, and I can't really articulate it in words how I create things. I try to explain things to them, but I'm just such a visual person that I know that I would like to see things. So that's why I decided to bring these to you. But have fun, really. If you have any questions at any time, please leave comments. I try to answer them right away. I do have a notification that, you know, when you leave a comment, I do get a beep on my phone. And if I'm not totally swamped with something, I'll take, you know, the 1 minute that it takes to actually respond. So please feel free to leave me comments. So I hope you like the overall composition so far. It does change quite a bit in the second video. So this is just the process. This is the underpainting. And I really enjoyed working on this one. I think this one's going to be beautiful when I put it onto canvases. And I'll link everything to where I sell them and stuff, or where you can place orders if you're interested in that also. It is a beautiful composition. I was very happy overall with the results in the end of this. So, and I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun bringing it to you today too. So look for the video, part 2. Will be coming out. There is a button. If you subscribe, you do get notification that I have put out another video. So make sure you hit the subscribe button, or come back in about a week or so and you should be able to see that. So here it is so far, and it's kind of crazy, but I like it. I mean, it's going in the direction that I like, and I'm going to walk away from it for a little bit, and that's exactly what I did. I took a break and I came back with fresh new eyes and began to work on it again. So stay tuned so you can see the final version of this and how I came up with that. So that's it for today, everybody. That's probably enough for the first one. Don't want to overload you. Thank you so much for watching. Please continue to watch and leave a message, and give me a thumbs up. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Bye now.